Good morning. My name is Joy Barnes Johnson, and I am a science educator at the University of Wyoming. This broadcast is to address some of the work that I've done actually with New Jersey Gear Up as part of a federal grant program to help minority and underrepresented youth gain access to college and college experiences. Over the course of this workshop, we'll talk about writing in particular, writing that addresses reluctant readers as well as students who perhaps have oral traditions or oral traditions that would be limitations for them toward the full development of language literacy. Many of the strategies that we will describe will address learning styles and cultural norms that appear quite frequently in urban communities. While these strategies are useful for any reluctant writer or reluctant reader, these strategies themselves were developed with those things in mind. So you might ask, how is it that I came to think about this writing strategy? And it was developed in part because it was something that I used in my own dissertation process. As part of my dissertation, I had a survey, but then I also conducted interviews with teachers and did observations in classrooms in an urban elementary school. The teachers with whom I worked for my study ranged in their beliefs about their teaching and what learning should look like. One of the teachers agreed to participate in the study, but did not want to actually be recorded. So you can imagine, as a researcher, the challenges that that presented. One of the ways that I responded to her reluctance to participate fully, that is by being videotaped or audio taped or photographed, one of the ways that I responded to that limitation was to actually take field notes in the moment, but often I would go out into the hall and capture audio field notes on a voice recorder with just my voice in response to what I had just observed. In that process, I learned the power of a mobile device in capturing voice, and then the greater power that comes from actually listening to what I had just said and further transcribing it. I could recognize patterns that made sense or did not make sense in my speaking, but then I had a context. I could hear noise in the background, which again helped to frame my own reflections on that process. Over time, I began to really understand how this strategy could also be used with students. Additionally, we spoke a lot about how we could vary things during my study. Spoke a lot with the teachers. I spoke a lot with the teachers about how I could, or we could, modify activities that they found online to better suit the language, ability, and styles of their students, and modify the text so that it was more appropriate for this group of students. Oftentimes, the class was filled with students who were speakers of other languages, and the result, of course, was this second strategy of variation. So, this is cap writing. I'm going to wait for a few more moments. I have a group that's supposed to join us live, so we'll see if they can actually join. In the meantime, I will probably go ahead and invite them, so let me try that. All right, There are a few things that I'd like to also make you aware. You can certainly ask me questions if you have a question, and I will prepare to share links. You can use the chat box on the right side of the screen if that is a more suitable tool for you. So I'm going to actually go ahead and get started with some of the data and strategies. If you can, I'm going to share the screen. So that you can begin to see. All right, so here is my conceptual framework for what CAP writing is. CAP writing is a tiered approach to the writing process. Developed in part to address the needs of reluctant writers, it acknowledges learning style preferences that are oral in nature and attentive to cultural norms and traditions that are based in spoken word. Oral language competency is distinguished from literacy in literate societies where reading and writing are critical to the daily function of its members, according to Susan Benson, who wrote for a journal about communication disorders. So there is a triangular relationship in literacy that regularly plays out in school settings, formal and informal. The relationship between reading, writing, and speaking can be seen in most K-12 curricula. That is, you'll have a speaking class, you will have a writing class, and assignments. Emphasis on these three literacies or ways of demonstrating literacy have had a profound impact on the way that children are taught and evaluated. CAP writing adds another dimension of literacy to the conceptual framework of writing that allows individuals to develop their own writing workshop, solo or in groups, that honors thought in ways that are uniquely personal and community relevant. The fourth dimension, which is literacy, adds a depth that is currently missing in a triangular model of language. So, please review. Hello? Okay, so I'm going to change it over to a video call format, so give me 2 seconds and I'll move it over to that. Does that make more sense? Okay. Okay. Well, do you want me just to, I can go through and then I'll share the link with you and you can play it back. So let me finish it as a broadcast and then I'll just send you the link. Does that make sense? And then I'll be on the phone with you. All right, so give me about 3 minutes. I'll finish wrapping it up as a broadcast, and then I will send you the link to the YouTube video, and then I'll call you back so we can actually walk through it. Okay. Very good. Sounds good. All right, thanks. Bye. So that's our viewer with whom we are working. But I will go ahead and finish explaining what the CAP writing model is. So we were talking a little bit about the literacy triangle that commonly is obvious in the classroom. You have reading, which is sort of advantaged or leveraged as a skill set higher than any other. Then you have writing, which is its very near neighbor in terms of value. And then finally speaking, we ask students to communicate their ideas with each other and with us as educators. So reading, writing, and speaking go hand in hand. The more you read, or the more you write, or the more you speak, generally competencies are developed. Well, there's this other thing that we believe happens, and that is you've got the reading, writing, and speaking elements, but then the listening itself also is a critical means of building literacy. Many believe that listening itself is an early literacy strategy, and perhaps it is. However, in certain communities, that is the primary way that learning actually happens. And so we're just thinking that there is a depth. And while you have to forgive my model here, but I'm trying to show that a pyramidal relationship between reading, writing, and speaking, but also listening. So you're adding to that triangular relationship a depth that will allow students to go deeper or explore further their own literacy. So what is CAP? Well, CAP itself stands for, and we're using alliteration here, this three-tiered approach to writing, where students are building their skills. So in tier one, you've got academic habit formation around essential questions. Traditionally, that would be the pre-writing process. So students are going to ask themselves before they get started, okay, what content do I want to focus on? Who is my audience? And for what purpose am I doing this writing assignment? We are helping them to understand whether they are doing a formal assignment or an informal assignment. These questions are their beginning. What are you going to talk about? Who are you going to talk to? And why? So we're teaching them also to code switch so that when they write for friends or family, that would be different than writing for a professional audience. That is key in the pre-writing process to conceptualize their responses. Tier two, meaningful tasks around language development and skills building or student interest motivation. These would be parts of the writing or the rewriting process in a traditional model of the writing process. So we're asking them to focus on concise language, authentic terms, and precise language. There is a huge difference, for example, between the word huge and gigantic. If you're trying to identify something that's incredibly large, you might use gigantic. But huge, well, that's smaller, but certainly that's even larger than just saying large. So we're asking students to actually think about the words that they use in the writing process. The third tier is organization. Tying this also to academic habit formation, that would be more akin to the review process. So after they've got a manuscript, we're asking them to now focus on capitalization, application of their writing to other contexts, and punctuation. When students spend so much time on capitalization, application, and punctuation in their early writing process, it oftentimes will be a stumbling block. And so these three tiers, academic habit formation around essential questions, meaningful tasks around language development, and organization of their manuscript, is what we have identified as the CAP writing strategy. So how do they do this? Number one, we put emphasis on transcription. We want students to learn that their spoken words and their voice is important. So we ask them, instead of starting first with a blank piece of paper and a pencil, start with a voice recorder. Record their thoughts about the assignment. What content are they going to focus on? Who is the audience and what is their purpose? Once they record their voice, they can then move toward listening and transcribing. Once they have their transcript in front of them, now they can go back and do their editing. They can go back and look for places where they're rambling, look for better vocabulary if it is more academically rich, and then identify precise words rather than just the standard words that might not indicate the depth of their understanding. After they have this full transcript, manuscript, first draft, we ask them to do a revision and review process to look for capitalization, applications, and punctuation. Borrowing from a model that I actually really like about the writing process, the last step is actually publishing and sharing. Because so much of writing is social, we ask that students share out their responses, which fits well within the context of the Gear Up program, formal instruction, and informal instruction. Thank you for your time and attention today, and I will look forward to being in touch. If, in fact, you'd like to get in touch with me, my name is Joy Barnes Johnson. I can be reached at drjoybjohnson@gmail.com to answer any additional questions. Thank you and have a great day.